All right, on today's show, we'll tell you why Anthony Rendon's success equals the Angels' success. So here we go. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen every day. Every show is free and available on all platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And those watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops.
Happy Tuesday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, Mike, a few notes. First of all, get your questions and comments in for Fan Mail Friday this week. Get your spring training thoughts, things you're excited about, things that concern you. We're going to get into that in the last segment of the day. But in the meantime, it's time to talk about Anthony Rendon. So on today's show, we're going to talk about, does his success equal the Angels' success? Then we're going to get into his comments that he made last week and share our perspective and thoughts on that. It stirred up a lot of feelings and thoughts and controversy. And so I think it's important for us to dive into that one. And then, of course, again, we'll talk about what we've noticed about spring training and kind of teach you, the Locked On Angels listeners and viewers, how to watch spring training, not how to watch it on like Bally Sports or on the radio or MLB TV, not that kind of how to watch, but how to watch for particular nuances and things that you want to observe as the spring training continues. So let's get to today's episode. Mike, let's talk a little Rendon.
Well, just to get it off our chest, the very, very top of the show, Johnny, Rendon's success does equal Angels' success.
There it is.
Because he is he's an X factor to this team. So here's a couple of bites, all right? So in 2022, the Angels were 26-21 with Rendon in the game.
Mm-hmm.
In 2021, the Angels were 33-25 with Rendon. Were we over 500 at all in 2020? I mean, it didn't feel like we were that good at all.
We were 500 at the deadline in 21.
Right.
Yeah,
that's right.
The trade, All-Star break.
I mean, the Angels were good when he plays. And here's what's really interesting, John. In wins and losses last season, Rendon, when he is on, the team is on. And when Rendon is off, the team is off. So let me read the wins and his stats in the wins, and then you give us the losses. So
the fun stuff.
I want you to handle the big news. All right. So he in 26 of those wins, 26 of those games where they won games, Rendon had some really big numbers. I had 115 plate appearances, 98 at bats. Johnny had 24 hits, 7 of them were doubles, 3 home runs, and 16 RBIs. Even had 2 stolen bases, 14 walks, and only 22 strikeouts. Here's his slash line. It's not super impressive, but we're going to talk about his clutch stats here in a minute. But his slash line was 245, 339, 408, and 747 OPS. And so this guy was really strong when it came to Angels actually winning. When he was good, the Angels were good. Now in the losses, listen to these numbers. John, go ahead and share that.
Yeah, it's interesting because of the wins. In wins, those were his stats that you just read off. And like a 245 average is not great.
Yeah.
But he didn't have a great season in general last year.
Right.
Now, we'll get to the clutch stats because that's where he really thrived. And you and I have talked about that before. With runners in scoring position, he's a star. We saw that the other day. Ohtani on third. Rendon delivers the single, scores Ohtani, right? We're hoping that we're going to see that all season long. But let me talk about the losses. He had 20 games, 78 plate appearances, 4 runs, 14 hits, 3 doubles, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 9 walks, 13 strikeouts, and a 206 batting average, a 308 on base percentage, 338 slugging, and a 646 OPS. So you can see that when he's not on, this team is not on. In losses, when Anthony Rendon struggles, it seems like the whole team struggles, right? And I'm sure you could see that with Ohtani and Trout and any other player on the team. But the reason why we talk about Rendon needing to have success in 2023 and helping the Angels have success in 2023. Listen to these clutch stats. Now, before, you and I talked about just purely with runners in scoring position, but I'm going to list some other clutch stats out from last year. In 2-out situations with runners in scoring position, he had 18 plate appearances. He scored 3 runs, 6 hits, had 6 RBIs, 5 walks, and a 500 batting average, and a 1.167 OPS. Huge.
Yeah. Now, can I just point out?
Sure.
No strikeouts.
No strikeouts.
He is not striking out with 2 outs and runners in scoring position.
Delivering, baby.
Gosh, don't we need that?
Right. Especially with how much they struggled with the strikeout last year.
Yeah.
Now, in late and close games, he had 25 plate appearances, 3 runs, 5 hits, 1 double, 1 home run, 4 RBIs, 1 stolen base, no strikeouts, and 7 walks and 3 strikeouts. Incorrect. Sorry, my bad. So 3 strikeouts and 7 walks, a 278 batting average, a 980 OPS, which is great. So 500 slugging there. In tie game situations, Mike, he had 47 plate appearances. Now, some of these numbers will overlap because they are referencing the same thing.
Sure.
But tie games, this is important. He had 47 plate appearances, 6 runs, 12 hits, 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs, 5 walks, 9 strikeouts, a 293 average, 488 slugging, 871. So in tie game situations, he's coming through.
Yeah.
And again, these numbers extend to when the Angels are within 1 run, within 2 runs. Within 1 run, he's hitting 294. Within 2 runs, he's hitting 283. So you can see that in those key moments, even though the season stat line did not look good for him last year.
Yeah.
And we could probably attribute some of that to the wrist injury. He was coming back from the hip injury last year. Also, Mike, remember that when we dove into the runners in scoring position discussion, Anthony Rendon was not very good leading off an inning last year. So you do not want him leading off an inning. You want people in front of him to get on base so that he can drive them in. So the big question here, Mike, the Rendon factor, the X factor, how crucial is Anthony Rendon to this team in 2023?
Well, John, when we look at his stats, and it's a small sample size because he wasn't able to play, he's also notoriously a slow starter. And so here he is as a slow starter, but where he wasn't slow, where he didn't struggle was when it mattered. And so talking about how crucial he is to this team, I think Rendon's slash line for the entire season is something that will make secondary. I think what we need to make a priority is what he does when those runners get on base in front of him. And this is why I think having him bat in the meat of that order 4, 5 is so important, because you know that guys like Trout and Ohtani are going to get on. Plus, Taylor Ward has really shown to get on base. And then him and Hunter Renfroe, Rendon and Renfroe, went back-to-back home runs in the spring training games this weekend. And so he's going to be really crucial, because he's going to be the guy that's going to knock in the runs when we need him to. And I'm going to go back to it again. 0 strikeouts, John, when it really matters. And that's what we need with this team, because I think there was probably 4 or 5 episodes that I can count and remember from last summer where you and I complained about how the Angels were just watching balls go straight down the middle, right?
Pass
it was
balls.
So terrible. It was awful. And I remember that distinctly, because it was almost comical how they were not swinging the bats. And so Rendon knows how to make contact. And so I think that we have to be really smart as fans and not look at his slash line at the end of the year and judge if it was a successful year or not. I think we have to look at these deeper numbers, the clutch numbers, because I think that's going to tell the better story. And I think that the better story is Rendon is going to be key to the Angels getting to the playoffs and being successful in the playoffs, but even during the regular season, being in competition in the West and battling some of those good teams.
So again, good stats from Rendon in situations where it matters. Now, coming up on Locked On Angels, we're going to get to Rendon's spring training comments that kind of stirred up some feelings within the Angels fan base. Also, we're going to talk about what's important to watch in spring training and What doesn't matter so much? We're going to get to all that coming up.
Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Now, Built Bars are great because they are delicious and you don't have to have all that fat and all that calories. Nobody wants that. And when you're wanting to maybe skip a meal or you're working really hard and you maybe missed lunch, then you can grab a Built Bar and it actually fills you up. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. They come in really great flavors like churro and peanut butter brownie and coconut almond. And I just saw on the website, John, that the cookie dough chunk puff is back for a limited time. And so if you jump to the website, you can grab one of those today. They're only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and they have 17 grams of protein. And again, there's 3 ways that you can grab a Built Bar. Go to their website, built.com. They have a wide selection of bars and puffs, or you can head to your nearest Walmart in the pharmacy section. They have a 4-bar box of Built Bars. And if you go to Sam's Club, and everybody loves Sam's Club, they have a 13-bar box with all of their hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. And when you get it, you're going to enjoy it. It'll fill you up. Plus, it tastes really good. So Built, you got to try this.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. And as we continue our conversation about Anthony Rendon, we got to jump in to what was said last week that kind of stirred up some controversy. So he spoke to reporters last week, and the comments kind of seemed to sit wrong with a faction of Angel fans. And so what you and I are going to do, we're going to talk about from Sam Blum's article for The Athletic, his reporting on it, what Rendon said, provide our responses, and just kind of get into like what happened here, because it seems like a interesting situation. So from Sam Blum, when asked for his expectation this season, it was simple: not to have another surgery. Rendon said, "I'm 2 for 2 the 2 last years. It sucks. It drains a lot out of you, not just physically, but mentally. It's not fun." And then Rendon continued, "I know right now it only looks like we're playing for these next 4 years of baseball," Rendon, who's 32, said. "But I'm trying to hang out with my kids for the rest of their lives, and you guys aren't going to see that. But when I'm trying to get out of bed when I'm 50 and I can't because I'm trying to impress you guys from having surgeries, now I've got to deal with that with my kids, and now the kids get the short end of the stick." Then Blum kind of explained that his quote came in larger contextual point that Rendon was trying to get across, and that's that baseball isn't what defines him as a person. He acknowledged that he's heard the criticisms. His friends and family often send the social media lists Rendon comments said publicly about him, and he admitted that it bothers him from time to time. "It definitely gets to me," Rendon said. "I understand and I hear it, and at times, yeah, it pisses me off. I try not to let it go any further than that." So some very interesting comments from Anthony Rendon regarding his future in terms of spending time with the family after he's done playing baseball. Is he going to be able to get out of bed in the morning, or is his hips going to be too messed up to do so? He's gone through 2 surgeries where he can't play baseball these last 2 years. So I think Sarah Valenzuela put it best last week when we talked to her, and it was just an air of like reality and him being real with the reporters. And I also think that he's frustrated. We're frustrated as fans.
Yeah.
But Mike, tell me what you're thinking about all this, because I have some thoughts. I'd like to hear from you first.
Well, first of all, I didn't catch that note until you just read it, but he was talking about how like family and friends are sending him like the critiques and things that people are saying about him.
People say some awful things.
Family and friends, you guys need to stop doing that.
I know,
right? I've learned
family or friend.
Like, I don't have the reputation that Rendon has, and I'm not known like Rendon. But I've learned you never Google your name, and the people around you, they should publicly praise you and privately critique you. And I don't think that he deserves a critique from a family member or a friend as a human. I mean, from a baseball perspective, the guy has had surgery. The guy is just having to deal with the reality of playing baseball for 162 games a season, and he's played for a long time. And so I think really, John, we need to remember the human behind the player. I am so over this player had the injuries, therefore we have a right to dismiss this dude as a human. And when fans say, well, wait a second, we want to be passionate. Passion is not dismissing and devaluing somebody. All right. Passion is saying, I'm really bummed that this third baseman didn't turn into Adrian Beltre that we thought he would, right? I'm really bummed that he didn't turn out to be the guy that we thought we were getting. You can be bummed about that, fans. Everybody's going to be bummed about that. John and I are bummed about that.
Right.
But to talk about this guy in degrading sort of ways is absolutely ridiculous. And hear me when I say this. Those watching, those listening, lean in, because I don't want you to miss this.
Come on.
Passion is not dismissing a human. Passion is not dropping terrible language and saying, I can't believe this and I can't believe. Passion is not being negative. That's stupid and we need to stop it. So that's just from my heart. That's passion, by the way, is just being very honest about how we treat these baseball players. And the reason why this is so fresh in my heart and in my mind, John, I just had a conversation this weekend with a friend who was a professional soccer player for a women's team in Houston. And she is recovering from knee surgery. She had an issue with her knee, and she is really struggling with this reality that she's trying to push herself to be the player that she can be. She's only 25. And so she's got a great career ahead of her, but she's trying to push herself to get back out onto the field and be the player that she was before she got hurt. She was a star of this team. She's really great on this team, but what she's finding is that the recovery is going really slow. She had the surgery, did all the rehab, and then went out there for a game, and immediately her knee swelled up. And so she was frustrated with that. And then her coach put her in a different position on the field. And so she honored her coach, but John, it's not her best position. And so she didn't play her best. And so she shared with me that she's putting pressure on herself. She feels the pressure from the coaches and the training staff, and she feels the pressure from the organization. They're paying her. And so what it opened my eyes to, John, is that these players are not immune or ignoring the vibe that is out there. And fans, us getting angry and dismissing them is actually not helpful, because I think it actually goes against everything that we know about mental health and mental fortitude and stability and all of that stuff.
Right.
I'm all about fans being frustrated. And you and I, John, we've gotten frustrated probably more off the pod than we have on the pod, because we're naturally positive people. But I don't think that fans should ever be disrespectful. You can be upset that a player isn't on the field for whatever reason. But instead of being upset and then dismissing them, I think we can be upset and just be frustrated and then hope that the next guy that steps up is going to solve the problem, or the Angels or whatever organization you're cheering for, go and get somebody for that. I just don't want us to forget the human. And Rendon, he's got kids, he's got a family, and I'm okay with him saying, I want to be healthy for my kids and I want to be healthy for my family. What he's not saying, John, is I don't want to play well and I don't want to win. He didn't say that at all.
That never was said.
But stupid fans decide that they're going to think stupid thoughts and say stupid things about Rendon, and he didn't say anything that was stupid. And the fact that we have to get the context and here's what he actually said, come on, we got to give some grace and some mercy and give space to these guys. He's frustrated like we are frustrated. Don't tell me that this guy doesn't want to perform. I know he wants to perform, and that's why he's like, I don't want any more surgeries. I want to go out there and I want to play. And that is the end of the rant.
I appreciate that, because I don't know when passion got confused for son of a bang, son of a boom. Like, and you and I are not those kinds of guys anyway. And so when I know that people have said that they want to see us angry, like, you're not going to get that from us. I'm just telling you right now, you're not going to get F this and S that and all this stuff. Like, you're not going to get that from us. Like, that's just not going to happen. But the thing is, you know what passion is passion is putting out 5 days a week episodes about the Angels because we love this team. Passion is responding to comments and having great interactions with other Angel fans. That's passion. And I love doing that kind of stuff. And I know you do as well. And passion is preparing and having a great show and making a quality show. And I think that that's important too. But Mike, let me give you my thoughts on this whole thing. It feels like a mishmash of a whole bunch of emotions like rolled into one. Are fans frustrated? Of course. As a fan, it sucks that Rendon hasn't been on the field for 2 years. Who else is frustrated? Rendon. He doesn't want another surgery, right? And the other point is it his fault that he's needed 2 surgeries? No. You can't help having to have hip surgery. I have hip problems and I'm not a baseball player and it sucks. And I haven't had surgery. And then he had the wrist issue. And if you watch how he plays third base, you might understand why he had a wrist issue happen. Like, he hustles out there. He's one of the greatest defenders at third base, even at his age at 32. And here's the thing. We have to rewind and remember, number one, it's not our money. Number two, this is year 4 of a 7-year deal. So 4, 5, 6, and 7 years are still on the table. We've only had him for 3 years, and he's been hurt 2 out of those 3 years so far. I understand that. But is it his fault that year 1, where he was top 10 in AL MVP voting, was 60 games? No. Perhaps if 2020 was a full season, we would have had a full healthy season of Rendon, but we didn't. And that's fine. But then to say that Rendon, just because of the injuries, is a bust, and this is what drives me nuts. He's a bust. He's a bust. You know, you want to know who a bust is? It's not somebody who needed surgeries because he's out there playing really hard every day. But you want to know who a bust is? Vernon Wells was a bust, Mike. Josh Hamilton was a bust. And that was sensitive because he relapsed later on, but pre-relapse, he stunk. He was not the Josh Hamilton that we wanted. You know who else was a bust? Raul Ibanez, who was supposed to DH for us in 2014, bat 157. And granted, he was 42 years old, so that was just a ridiculous signing anyway. You want to know who else is a bust? Danny Espinosa, who played second base for us, who was out of the league the year after he played for the Angels. Those are busts.
I got heartburn when you talked about those guys.
Those are busts. And here's the thing about like him wanting to play ball, please fans, be with his family. He's getting surgeries, which are very difficult to go through, to give us a better baseball player now. Him getting surgeries now gives Rendon a better quality of life later down the road. It sucks. It's frustrating. Nobody is choosing this for Rendon. They have to happen. This is a tough game. Baseball's tough. You're doing all sorts of unnatural movements at the plate, and when you're diving and falling on top of your wrist at third base, like this is tough. It's a tough game, and they need him on the field this season. They need him to be healthy and productive, just like we talked about in the last segment. There's a whole host of reasons why Rendon needs to be on the field, and as a fan, I can understand the frustration, but as a human being who is going through all this, like I have some compassion for that. And at the same time, like it's entertainment, right? At the end of the day, it's entertainment. It's not my money I'm spending to go to the games, but like I didn't sign this deal. I didn't sign this contract. What am I worried about? The guy didn't play 2 out of 3 years. Well, shoot, that's on Artie Moreno, right? For signing him in the first place. But the thing is, he's very productive when he's on the field. And we have to remember that there's a human behind all this, and that goes for all of baseball. There are humans behind these players, right? Behind the face of the tough baseball player is a real human being with families and friends and kids and things like that. And so I just think that, like you said, we need to be respectful. We need to remember who these people are behind the scenes. And I think he's going to go out there and he's going to prove everybody wrong this season. So mark it down. You can laugh and point at me all you want if he gets hurt again, which would suck. But the fact is it's not really any of our business in terms of if he's injured or not being on the field, because you can't play if you're injured, and it's got to do something about it. And he didn't choose injuries. We didn't choose injuries. So let's hope that this is a good season. Let's ride. Let's go. Let's stop with all the negative talk about him and hope that he does well, because that's what we want for our Angels at the end of the day, right?
Johnny, how about a palate cleanser? Let's give some spring training pro tips for those watching and those listening. Because when it comes to spring training, there are really important things that we observe. And some are good, and some we just can actually put aside. And I think the first thing that we need to acknowledge is it's not about wins and losses during spring training. Yes, it'd be great to win those games. And yes, it's you can see the trajectory. If a team does well in spring training, that they'll do well in the regular season. But what we're really trying to gauge, and what the Angels specifically are trying to gauge, is who's going to make an impact on this team in 2023 and how the players are going to progress. There was a quote from Phil Nevin yesterday who said that Sam Bachman could be somebody that they bring up to be a really key bullpen piece at the end of the season and perhaps even in the playoffs. Think like K-Rod, right? And that even Ben Joyce is in the workings for being in the bullpen. And so that's what spring training does. And by the way, that was after just like their first appearance. Phil Nevin's like, yeah, these guys probably need to be up, because he was so
we're going to need those guys,
right? Yeah. The other thing, and I want you to expound on this, Johnny, is we've seen people really excited about the team. We're excited about this team in the few games that we've seen so far. And then there's been this response, well, it's spring training. Let's let them have a shot at major league pitching, first of all, not just single A pitching. But Johnny, the Angels have done that. Would you share those stats?
I get frustrated with the fact that it's like, okay, we get excited about things that happen in spring training. Oh, but it's not major league pitching.
Right.
Oh, it's not major league hitting. Well, actually it is.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Marco Gonzalez, who's a full-time member of the Mariners rotation, gave up a 2-run shot to Joe Adell. Tanner Banks, who's a long reliever for the White Sox and had a 3.06 ERA last year, was beat up on by Ohtani and Ward and Trout and Rendon in Game 2. And then Jared Walsh doubled the opposite way on Monday. Rengifo drove him in with a 2-run home run against, Logan Webb, who is a perennial National League Cy Young contender. That guy is going to get all the Cy Young votes. And yes, these starters are working things out just like our starters are working things out. Hitters are working things out just like other teams' hitters are working things out. But here's what you need to know. Those first 2 innings are crucial because that's when you see the good pitching and the good hitting. So the fact that Davidson, Detmers, Sandoval, they all went 2 scoreless innings, that's pretty good because they did face major league talent. So it's okay to take some wins away from spring training. It's okay to point to that and say, hey, those guys started out pretty good. And that's what I really want to get at here is the fact that when you watch spring training, not about the wins and losses, but it's about how these guys are progressing. And if Sandoval came out there and gave up 5 runs in the first, well, you might be concerned about that, but you also might say, well, it's February 27th, right? Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But if that continues through spring training, that would be concerning. In fact, there's even a couple of concerns right out of the gate, Mike, that I think that we should talk about.
Yeah, Jaime Barria is a concern because he really struggled in his first outing, right? Gave up 4 runs, and he's somebody that they're looking at for that 6th starter spot. And so Tucker Davidson at this point would probably be the guy that you would slot in there over Jaime Barria because he looked so much better. Carlos Estevez walked 2, gave up an RBI single, only got 1 out. I love the tweet to Sam Blum. Somebody said, great, our closer can't get anybody out. And Sam Blum, he responded with, it's February 27th, dude. Calm down. Right? Like, and that's the thing, like you can celebrate wins. I love that. You can celebrate wins and you can actually see some concerns and talk about those as well. And I think for Barria, I think for Estevez, we got to give them a bit more time to develop and work some things through. Remember, there's still a lot of spring training. The WBC is coming up. Today is the 28th. So there is plenty of time, Johnny. Yeah. And guys are facing some competition, not at the plate, but actually in the organization. I already mentioned the 2 names, Sam Bachman and Ben Joyce. Like, Johnny, that's got to be intimidating to have Ben Joyce come up and immediately throw as hard as he was throwing and looking really good, right? And so I wonder if that plays into it a bit. It has to. They're human. We just talked about that and established that. So that has to bother them a bit.
I just think it's important for there to be competition in spring training. Yeah. The fact that, Estevez really wants the closer role, but Ben Joyce could easily get it out of spring
Ben's
training.
Like, I'm throwing 105, bro.
Yeah, dude. So, and again, like, Ben Joyce had a great outing the other day. Let's see what happens next time. I think that's important to watch. Yeah. And here's a comment that I really loved, Mike, and I kind of want to wrap it up with this idea from Joseph Manser on YouTube. He's a frequent commenter. He said, guys, I was so tempted to jump off my sofa, pump my fists so many times this past Saturday and Sunday that I can't tell you. But that was my heart reaction, and my heart has been broken before, and I have several goal posts that I will use to wait until I start my fist pumping. I want to see how the minor leaguers perform while the starters are at the WBC. Then, before they break camp, I want to see how healthy Walsh, Rendon, Trout, and Ohtani are when the season starts. I don't want to see them slow start to start the season. I feel that the years where the team gets off to a slow start, it just seems like it takes until summer for them to get right and get going.
It's a great point.
And Phil Nevin, I want to see him use all of his motivational skills to get the team in bulldog mode right off the gate. Fingers crossed. Mike, I love the idea of watching spring training with goalposts. Here's those goalposts that you can consider. Watch our stars like Ohtani and Trout and Rendon, how they perform and see if they stay healthy. watch our guys like Rengifo and Taylor Ward, who really took a step forward in 22, and see if that continues. And so far, in 3 games, it's been pretty fun to watch those two, and let's see how it continues throughout spring. Then, other goalposts, watch our young guys. See if they can make an impact in 2023. Maybe Ben Joyce does get a bullpen spot. Maybe Sam Bachman does get a rotation spot, or at least a couple of spot starts. Those are some good goalposts, and so shout out to Joseph for that idea of watching spring training with goalposts. Keep that in mind as we continue this month and even watch the WBC.
Man, I love fans like Joseph. Thank you for your wise, calm, reality fandom. We appreciate that. And we appreciate those making Locked On Angels your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every single day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. You can find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, be sure to give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Mike, we got a great show lined up for tomorrow. What are we doing?
We talk about Lindsey Crosby a lot. We're going to talk with Lindsey Crosby tomorrow about all of the Angel minor leaguers, the top prospects. We're going to ask about Edgar Caro and Ohtani and other Angel prospects. I can't wait for this guy. And Johnny's got a great beard. So if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to get to see that beard, and it's awesome.
It's a good beard. It's
a strong beard, man. It's really good.
All right, friends, we hope you'll come back and join us for that episode. And in the meantime, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Angels, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.